ask you about a few things. The first one, we'll start with Sam Edmonds' game on Saturday. I guess what were your impressions of him? You know, obviously he missed the joint practices on the COVID list, and then comes back and had 4 sacks. What were your impression of the game that he had?
Well, I think anytime you talk about Sam, you got to talk about a guy that's a very diligent worker. He takes his craft very seriously. So anytime that he has success, for the amount of effort and time and energy that he puts in, you're obviously happy for him. You know, I think he did a lot of good things for us out there. You know, there's some things that we can work on and correct. But, you know, as far as being physically and mentally tough and, you know, working hard, Sam exemplifies all those things. So it's always good to see him out there having success.
He's a guy that has a bit of versatility too. You know, he can play outside a little bit, rush the passer inside. I know one of the sacks he came in on like a kind of a stunt or looked like. I guess what's the key to that in working with the defensive line and the linebackers to get that free rusher?
Yeah, Sam's worked very hard to be able to do multiple things for us. You know, he's a strong, he's an explosive guy. And again, we try to utilize his abilities the best we can. And you know, again, a lot of times you see one guy getting a sack, but there's usually somebody else that set it up. You know, you usually have good coverage in the back end. So, like for us, we always talk about, you know, it's 11 guys doing one thing. And when 11 guys do one thing correctly, somebody's going to have success. And the great thing about Sam is he's an unselfish guy, and he may do something good where somebody else has a play. So it was just nice to see him have some plays.
And then with Emmanuel Ogbah, obviously he led you guys in sacks last year. I guess what can you say in terms of what he brings to your defense? Obviously, you know, he's known as a pass rusher, but what can he do for your defense as a whole?
Well, again, Emmanuel's been a guy that's been pretty multiple and versatile for us as well. I mean, he's played all across the line for us. You know, obviously he's done some good things in the rush. You know, we're excited. I mean, I'm excited and glad we have him. Again, he's another hard worker, unselfish guy, very coachable. Little details that we hit him with, you know, you see that on film week in and week out. And again, he's always striving to improve his craft. And I would say he's a very unselfish individual. He will do things that are for the betterment of the group. And again, you know, glad we have him.
Sam, his journey, what he's had to do to get to this point, the way he's constantly had to prove himself. Does he come in here every day with a little bit more? Not to say anyone else doesn't, but does he bring a little bit extra just with everything he's had to prove? And
I think he has a great work ethic. And I think he's a humble individual. He's a hard worker. He puts in a tremendous effort at practice, off the field, in the film room. So, I mean, I can't say enough good things about him.
What was it like when seeing that come together for 4 sacks in the game?
Again, I think, you know, a lot of times you talk about sacks. I mean, there's a lot of guys that are doing the right thing for those things to work, you know, and Sam's a big part of that. And, you know, we talk about team rush mentality. We talk about, you know, and we have to have good coverage for those sacks to occur. So it's not really, we don't celebrate the individual, we celebrate the group.
He's a guy that you've moved around, also like inside, outside, just his versatility.
Yeah, again, he's been able to do multiple things for us. You know, he's growing in some of those roles, and that's what we're asking all of our guys to do is strive for constant improvement and, you know, keep trending in an upward trajectory. And I think Sam is doing all those things.
I want to ask about Jalen. Obviously, he kind of made his debut appearing in the preseason game. It looked like he played well into the second half. What did you see from him, and how do you think he's going to be able to impact this team in year one?
Yeah, I think, you know, like all guys that come into the league, I think there's a learning process that has to occur. I think Jalen, you know, he when he's had the opportunities to get work on the field, he's made the most of those. And I think, you know, he's doing some good things out there. And then there's some things that, you know, we got a ways to go. But, like, the more he does it, the better he'll be at it. We're excited to have Jalen. He's a hard worker, and he's doing some good things for us. And, you know, we'll just hope that continues on an upward trajectory.
I mean, you don't have to say specifically for him, but for any outside edge pass rusher guy, what's the hardest part of transferring what you do in college to the NFL? Is it maybe setting the edge? Is it maybe finding counters to good offensive tackles? What do you see?
Well, I think it starts with everybody needs to be a complete football player. You got to be able to handle the run. You got to be able to handle the pass element. If we ask you to drop, you got to be able to handle those. So there's a lot of things that goes into it for him to handle. And then obviously everything in the NFL is new to him. The transition from college to NFL is not, just a easy, smooth transition. It's a different game. It's a different speed. The rules are different. I think there's a lot of things that go into it, but obviously it's football, and those guys have done it their whole life, and they adapt and adjust well to it. And I think as time goes and they get more experience, the better we'll be at things.
I got 2 more questions before I leave you.
Okay.
Taking up all your time.
No, go ahead.
Javon Holland. So I know last year you guys played a lot of single high looks and blitzed a lot. Obviously, at free safety, Javon's a guy that would be expected to be back, kind of patrolling the deep third. But how important is it to have that kind of versatility, or with your safeties, where both guys can drop back, both guys can play around the box and cover?
Yeah, I mean, again, we try to set up our defense where guys can do multiple things, and so that we just don't sit in the same looks over and over again and make it easy on the offense. And I think the more guys can do multiple things, gives you an opportunity to disguise coverages, and it gives you an opportunity to play different coverages. So, again, Javon's a guy that we're excited to have, and again, he's another hard worker. And I mean, I know I say that about all these guys, but they really are. I mean, they put in a good day's work, and our goals haven't changed. Our goal is to be better tomorrow than we were today, and that's kind of how we approach it.
Thank you. And then my last question is, you led the league in takeaways last year. Obviously, that's not something you can kind of go into a game necessarily accounting for, but how do you kind of drive that and instill that in your players from the practice field to the film study or whatever it may be?
Yeah, we spend a good amount of time on drill work when it comes to turnovers and recovery. We spend a good amount of time studying opportunities and situations when those come up, to make sure that our players are aware and alert and are looking for them and how to handle those situations. And then we also talk about we have to take advantage when we get tip balls, we get overthrows, there's a miscommunication between a quarterback and a receiver. Like we got to take advantage of those plays. So we spend a good amount of time on it. We believe in it. At the end of the day, there's no stat in football that doesn't really equate to having the football. So anytime we can get our hands on the football or get to football, it's a good thing for us. Yeah, you're welcome. Hi, Barry. How you doing?
So, Sam, a lot of us, knowing far less than you all, looked at Sam as, okay, here's a guy trying to make the team. Do you all look at him as someone, because he's carved out a role as an effective pass rusher, as someone ideally you would like to get on the field in regular season games, even knowing, obviously, you're deep at linebacker?
Well, I think for us, each player, and it's not unique to Sam, what you're trying to do is you're trying to make them the best version of themselves on and off the field. And I think with that intent in mind, there's a lot of things that that go into the classroom, the film study. Obviously, Coach Campanelli's done a great job with Sam. We ask a lot of Sam. He does a lot of multiple things for us. And, again, as a group, we don't really celebrate individual sacks because we always preach team rush mentality. It takes the coverage to, help the rush. It takes the rush to help the coverage. We're excited when guys have individual success. We're happy for them, especially, guys that are as diligent worker as Sam. But at the end of the day, our focus is getting 11 guys to do one thing. And once those 11 guys do the one thing that we're asking them to do, in turn, it usually turns out somebody's going to have success. So that's kind of how we look at it.
Has Jalen Phillips, even though obviously he missed some time, has he shown you enough in terms of knowledge of being able to play hand on the ground, standing up, physical skills, that you think he's going to be a big help to you early in the season, despite the missed time?
Well, I think again the thing for Jalen is you know he's going to keep working. You know, like yesterday was his or whatever day we played. It was the first experience that he had in the NFL on the field, so we were excited for that for him. And you know, there's some good things out there. There's some things that you know he'll get better, and sometimes like you can't buy experience. So like you know, one of the ways to get better is to play, and when you can expose him to multiple things and he can see multiple looks and get the experience of it, you know, some of the things that we've seen in practice and some of the things that he's done, obviously, you know, we would expect it to trend in an upward pattern where he's getting better.
Excellent. One last thing. Jason Taylor expressed surprise on your first series that Jalen came out of the game on 3rd and 8. And obviously you're not going to show all the lineups you plan to use this year to New England and Las Vegas and Buffalo. But is it safe to assume that we will see Jalen, Van Ginkel, and Agba together at times this year in pass rushing downs?
I wouldn't assume anything, Barry. You know what they say about assumptions. But, you know, again, the things that I'll really never – I won't talk about scheme. I won't talk about strategy. I just think it puts you at a competitive disadvantage. There's different ways to approach different things. You know, I don't think you're seeing a lot of, you know, some teams, they're running a lot of stuff in the preseason, other teams not so much. I just think for us, from a strategic standpoint or a scheme standpoint, those are things that, you know, we'll kind of do what we do, and, you know, and people can assume or look at however they want to take it.